Welcome everyone to this edition of Mythbusters EDI edition, and today we'll be evaluating some long-standing myths related to EDI, while also getting up to speed on the latest and greatest EDI solutions for Infor Visual. A lot has changed the last couple of years in terms of technology, services, and automation with regard to EDI, so we're happy to walk through a lot of that today with you for the next hour. When I looked at some of the questions on the registration, they ran the gamut from just kind of interested in learning more about EDI through, learning more about specifically how we can automate that. So we're thankfully going to cover those topics today. Before we begin, I want to let everybody know that this is being recorded. So be so advised. And if you can't hear me talking right now, make sure that you test your sound. From the bottom of your Zoom panel, click that upward caret symbol and verify that computer audio is selected. We will be taking Q&A questions today, so you have a Q&A chat bubble that you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom panel as well. Click on that, ask any question you like, or maybe try to keep it on topic, but let us know if you have a specific question, and we will address those at the end of the webinar. Agenda-wise, we'll introduce myself and Tanya Sweet from Encompass, and we're going to go through 3 myths that we'll evaluate and walk through some content, do some technology demos, and then evaluate whether these myths are true or false. First one being that EDI is a huge pain. The second, that EDI requires an IT project. And the third, that EDI is too complicated to automate. So without further ado, I am Matt Rogers, Channel Sales at SPS. Been here a couple years now. Spent most of my career working in supply chain technology and digital services, and especially enjoy being here with Tanya today, who I've worked with pretty much since I've been here at SPS. Tanya.
Hi, I'm Tanya, and I've been working in the EDI world since the early 90s in healthcare, but moved over to the manufacturing and ERP world in 2007. And I've worked with tons of customers and trading partners, possibly all of them, but a lot of them anyway. And now I'm working at Encompass, leading a team of developers and implementation specialists as we work with SPS on EDI.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Tanya. All right, so let's dive in. The first myth then is that EDI is a huge pain, and the reason why we tee it up like that is if you look at how EDI started and where it's evolved, really it began with retailers trying to figure out an easier way to exchange documents essentially with suppliers, and for suppliers to be able to send back invoices, and for retailers to send POs and things like that. So over time, it was really intended to be a standard by which all retailers and suppliers could trade these types of documents, but then over time, things seem to change a little bit. Anybody who's familiar with EDI will know that the requirements for each retailer tend to be a little bit different from one another. And if you look at in terms of the testing requirements or the communication protocols, or maybe there's a data field, or maybe there's a schema difference in the way that information is traded, it tends to be different. So just as an example, Amazon has 7 documents that you are required to use if you want to do business with them. Dick's Sporting Goods has 5. Home Depot requires 20 different scenarios. Walmart and Costco require 0. That's partly due to our relationship with them. But all told, if you look at the 3,000 different buying organizations on our network, there's just a ton of differences in those requirements for retailers and wholesalers and those who are buying organizations. And the biggest challenge is managing a lot of those requirements differences, and also managing about 9,000 different changes, which we take on every year. So when you look at it that way, it really starts to kind of, if you're, again, newer to EDI, that'll give you some sense of the complexity involved that's out there in terms of trading and those trading relationships. And then on your side, as you think about your operation, you're going to have your own unique processes. So it's one thing to have those requirements be different between the retailers, but then as you start to standardize and orchestrate data into your system, you might have to do some cross-referencing from case packs into eaches, or convert UPC codes into product IDs, all depending on how you trade and you do business. So whenever there's a partner change or requirement change from the buying side, that often tends to result in a change on the supplier's side as well. And all told, what you really need to have internally or externally, whether you're doing it on your own or you're using a partner like SPS, is you have to have what we call the 7 components of EDI, which include technology you need to have just have your system up and running. You have to have a pretty good understanding of how those partners work. When say you got 5, 10, 100 or whatever, but you have to need to know what those requirements are for each of those partners, how they fulfill and process orders, all the different mapping requirements they have, all the communication channels that they require, plus all the change that you have to manage on a sometimes daily basis. You have to have folks who can design and configure the system for you. You have to know how to set up those communication protocols that those buying organizations dictate. So a famous example is Walmart requires an AS2 connection, where others may require FTP, API, or VAN. You have to be able to understand those testing protocols, make the phone calls up to those retailers or those buying organizations and walk through and step through their processes in order to comply. You have to be able to support it ongoing, and then you also have to, or hopefully you have a way to monitor and analyze what you're doing so you can make good business decisions going forward. So because of all of that, and you might compare it to a managed service of sorts, where they might give you some hosting services or might give you some assistance on a time and materials basis. Because of all that complexity, it's our view that EDI really requires something more than just a set of technology and tools. It really requires not only that, but also the team behind it to make it work, and also all the support that you need to keep it ongoing and running effectively. And that's the one thing, that's how SPS has approached it, especially the last 20 years as we've grown into, you could say, a leadership position. It's been our goal to provide the cloud-based technology that you need to run EDI, and then all the people who are going to lead the process for our customers, especially our supplier customers, to take on the burden of knowing those requirements changes that are dictated by those buying organizations, and making the phone calls when you need to test and certify and all of those things. So then support 24/7, 365, but all of that we've found that really doesn't have to exist within the supplier organization. They don't necessarily need to provide that retailer expertise, and that's where SPS really comes in, and we really differentiate ourselves. So with that, and our network that we've built over 20 years with that approach, where a lot of people, especially on the supplier side, have enjoyed the service or the approach that we have, where they can, let us worry about retail requirements and change management, and they can focus on their business. We've been able to grow our network to 80,000 pre-map connections now. We have about 1,000 3PLs, 3,000 buying organizations, and 31,000 supplier organizations that are now in network, that enable our customers and retailers or whoever else connecting to that network to access those pre-built connections that we've established over many, many years. We also have basically every security certification you'd ever want. We've been public now and listed on the NASDAQ for 10 years, about 1,500 employees, and headquartered in Minneapolis, for those who don't know us that well. And then beyond that, our partnership with Encompass and our history with Infor Visual. We have about 230 customers today running Infor Visual, over 1,200 documents in production, and have been working with Encompass for many, many years and had many successful automation projects with them, just by way of background. So with that, I would say if you were to evaluate that first myth, you would, is EDI a huge pain? And for anybody who has that experience, they would probably admit that it is, and we also admit that it is. But it's been our mission to kind of take that pain and take that on, and that's part of the service that we provide, is shielding you or insulating our customers from a lot of that complexity that's out there, and allowing them to focus on the stuff that they do best. Moving on then to myth number 2, does EDI require an IT project? And the answer to that is something that we will explore via, I'll show you a couple, basically a little bit of architecture, and then we're going to pop into a demo of our flagship product that we call Fulfillment. So I will just show you one example of what we call point-to-point architecture, where most legacy systems or on-premise EDI translation software tends to operate, which is if you have, and you're running it on your own, you're gonna have, and you're setting up, you're gonna have a unique map for every trading partner, for every document type that you're putting into production. So not only are you responsible for creating that map and maintaining that map, but you're also responsible for the connectivity, the translation, the mapping, and all of that orchestration or integration automation work into Infor Visual. So over time, this might be simple at first, but over time, especially if you have a larger library of trading partners, it starts to feel a little bit like this looks, where you have potential points of failure for each of these documents, and it can be a little bit messy trying to manage that. And just the way EDI is going to, there's been a trend of folks leaving the workplace with regard to EDI, not a lot of new people coming in. So it's hard to find talent to help support some of the systems that are out there today. So our model, instead, going back to that network approach, whereas, we look at it that we can take on a lot of that complexity and do all the standardization. So we take all of the retailer requirements, essentially boil that down, create a standard, do cross-referencing, take care of all those communication protocols, set up validations and alerts for error handling and things of that nature, and create all the dashboards and visibility tools required for our customers to take care of EDI, and then provide one single map for each document type that's out there. So that's really the big difference. So instead of creating point-to-point maps and managing all of those, you connect to the SPS network just the one time, and for each document, and instead of potentially up to 5, 10, 15, 100 partners, you're connecting to SPS once, and then we take care of all of that work and connecting with the retailers in terms of testing and requirements management and things of that nature. So with that, I'm going to start to get into a little bit, now that you kind of understand the network approach and how we've built our technology there, I'm going to start to talk a little bit more about how you connect to that network and how you start to trade and manage trading with your partners. So I'm going to walk through the fulfillment platform, and this is the web-based solution that we enable folks to work in. And so you don't necessarily have to have a suite of automation tools to connect to the SPS network. You can do it through a website. And again, that product, it's typically where we begin with our fulfillment product. It's especially ideal for those who have maybe a smaller partner community and those who need to get up and running quickly with compliance for a partner or two. And I'll step through a couple examples of how, at the same time, this technology has come a lot further in the last few years, and we're able to generate and create a lot of automation within this tool that you can take advantage of to trade with your partner community. So again, SPS spent a lot of time the last couple of years investing in this solution in particular to make it easy to trade, easy to buy, at an affordable price, and get you up and running quickly with partners if that's something that you're looking for. And I know a lot of manufacturers on this call today, maybe you have a handful of partners and you're working in the different customer portals. What this does is allow you to do all of your work in one place instead of going out to multiple websites and things of that nature. So I'll step through a couple examples of how this works, but basically you come in and you have your dynamic tiles there at the beginning, and you see exactly what you have in front of you for the day. And then say I want to go in and accept a PO and create an advanced shipment notification. I have all my orders teed up here, and I go in and have a nice human readable format for my purchase order. And what's nice about this workflow component here is that, similar to how that theme of insulating our partners from change. The workflow that we have inside fulfillment is tailored for each specific retailer or buying organization that you're trading with today. So this example is Target. They have, say, a couple steps that you need to go through from the ASN to the invoice. Other partners might have different steps or different documents that you have to complete. This workflow here is going to be completely tailored to those steps so that whoever's doing that within your organization doesn't have to again, understand that rule book, understand those requirements. They just follow the workflow and complete their steps as dictated by the system. So another nice automation feature that we've built in is that if you kind of go back maybe to a previous generation of online EDI tools and you wanted to do an ASN, you might have to fill out 33 different fields for Target, for example. But through an innovation that we call network automation, we're able to pull pretty much everything you need from that ASN out of the PO. And so instead, if you want to do a full form entry and plug everything in yourself, copy paste it or whatever, you can. But we've called or come up with something called quick entry, which again is going to pull that data in automatically. And that really reduces that manual process substantially, where you really only need to pop in that tracking number, hit send, and you're good to go. So again, for anybody else as well who's used a web-based system in the past for EDI, you'll notice that I just completed an ASN in about 7 clicks. And that's what we feel is a pretty significant advancement in terms of EDI technology. Another feature I want to call out is the ability not only to create carton labels, which again, if you think about anybody who knows or has a label printing operation as part of their warehouse or fulfillment process, you know that like the schema differences or requirements changes or differences, that the label requirements in the warehouse are different for each retailer as well, whether that's the spacing or the location of the text or the barcode and whatever. All of that is dictated by those retailer requirements in their rule book, and it's your job to adhere to those standards. And if you don't, your shipment might get rejected. You're going to see chargebacks and fees. You might damage your relationship with your retailer if you don't get it right, things like that. So what SPS has done as part of fulfillment, and we also have this available as an API service, what we've done is created basically a library of pre-certified retailer labels that you can access directly through the fulfillment portal here. So if you are going through this process, you create your ASN and you can pull those carton labels directly out of the system. The same is true. There's another feature, what we call carrier service, where we can connect directly with UPS and FedEx, Purolator, and many others to automatically generate shipping labels directly out of the system as well. So with that, we can go back and you can see that this has changed from 4 to 3. This has changed from 0 to 1. So again, those tiles dynamically update. You go in and say we want to process now and complete this order. We've completed the order. Now we want to invoice it. Very similar process. Looks pretty much the same. You've got your PO in a nice human readable format here. You've got your workflow back here where it says you've completed that ASN. Now I want to go create that new invoice. Again, you can enter every field if you want to, or you can use our automation feature for quick entry, pop in your invoice, hit send. So again, really trying to automate as much as possible within the portal here to make life a little bit easier and really enable EDI and make it easy to do EDI, especially when you're getting into it early in the game. So one last thing I'll show you again, one more automation feature is that you can do batch order processing where, let's see, create new and say, let's do the ASN, populate that, and then you can do multiple ASNs and invoices at the same time in this example. So that is what I wanted to take you through today. I'm going to pop back into my PowerPoint. And again, just kind of conclude with, if you look at the history of EDI, and as someone who spent many years in supply chain and dealing with EDI over the years, it was always, in many cases, difficult to execute through a web portal. It was commonly cost prohibitive to get started, and it took a long time to get set up. So what we feel like we've done with fulfillment, in particular, this web portal for those who again, you're new to EDI, you've got a handful of partners, but also if you want to stand up something right away on fulfillment and then work your way into automation, we can get you running quickly on your first partner within a week or two, and it starts at $130 a month. So with that, I will conclude myth 2 by saying, does EDI require an EDI project? And I will say that pretty conclusively that it does not, and a lot has to do with not only the automation and the features within the website that I showed you here, but also with what Tanya is about to go through with her demo in terms of automation. So with that, I'm going to introduce Tanya, and again, as we think about ways to connect to the SPS network, I've shown you one way to do it through the website here, and what Tanya is going to show you is how you can connect to the SPS network and then automate a lot of that work and have that populate directly into Visual. So Tanya, I will stop share here and let you go.
Right, thank you. So as Matt has said, we realize that at some point fulfillment is a beautiful tool, but at some point it's going to be a lot of work for a person or a team to manage. And that's where we come into automation. And our team has built some automation tools. This one is called Entrust, and it works with multiple ERPs. Today I'm showing the Visual ERP, obviously. And this is what our screen looks like when you log right into it. For the purposes of our demo, I'm only going to demo the 4 main most popular document types, which is 850, 810, 855, and 856. You can see those across the top of my screen here. And if you have other documents that you're trading, they would be listed further down here. So taking an 850, we get a standardized file from SPS. Every time we get this file, it looks the same. The data, of course, is the same, but the structure is in XML, and it looks the same every time it comes. And so because of that, we're streamlining our implementation because I don't need to make a map per trading partner per document type. I've just got this document that comes back and forth from SPS. Works out really well. So it's an XML, which is somewhat human readable. And I just wanted to show you what that looked like real quick. I'm going to be doing I'm going to walk through each step with everything stopping. But in real life, all of this would be automated and you wouldn't be taking things off hold and moving them around like I'm going to do in the demo. But we wanted to be able to show you each step. So it's going to be a little, it's not automated, but it can be. So I'm going to take 3 POs that we got from SPS, and I'm going to place them in this inbound folder, which is where your FTP would drop them off, FTP being the way we're communicating back and forth. So I'll put them in here, and it'll just take a minute, and they're going to process in the background, and they're going to show up in my dashboard. Now I've set it up so that they're going to be on hold so we can look at them. Just in the left-hand corner here, I've got to change my filter status to on hold and refresh my screen. And I have 3 POs because that's how many I brought in. And at first glance, I can tell immediately that one of them has a problem because it's highlighted in orange. I'm going to ignore that one for the moment, and we're going to take through the other 2 POs, which are clean and should work just great. And then I'll show you how we troubleshoot that one. So I have 3 different orders, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to follow them all the way through. And I'm just going to click on this bottom one and open it up and show you that we can see the data in a little bit more readable form than our XML. We can see that this is going to ship to Able Manufacturing. We can see our PO number. And we could actually, with just one click, go look at the XML just in case we didn't believe what we saw or we were confused at what we saw. With just one click, you can see that. I don't need to look at it right now, so I'm going to close that out, but I wanted to show you that. The details, if you want to know about your line details, up at the top, we would click on the line items, and I can see some of the details about my order. I'm going to just process these 2 and let them go right into Visual. And the way that I do that is just by selecting the 2 I want. And when I click Approve, it'll take just a minute, and we'll get approvals, and we will get our order numbers. So we've got order number 59 and 60, and we're going to follow those all the way through. So I will flip over to Visual, and I'm going to go search for my order number 59, which I actually need to get out and get back in here. I think I might be delayed slightly, sorry. Can't get my screen to come back, I'm very sorry. Love technology. All right, there we go. Just customer order entry. All right, now I can search for my sales order that came in. And you can see my list of sales orders here. I'm going to grab 59 to start with. Was our first one. And I can see my one line item here. My ship to is Able Manufacturing, which was similar to what, it was the exact same thing that we saw in the Entrust dashboard. Our status is on hold, and the trick here is as soon as I release this sales order and mark it released, I'm going to create the 855 automatically in the background in Entrust. And just with a click here, we'll pop over to the 855, which is our sales order acknowledgement. I'm going to click refresh. And there's my PO that we just created. I could send that back to SPS just by selecting it, approving it, and it will approve perfectly. And what it did is created an XML file in the same format as we send every time we send an XML. And it will go back to SPS, and they will unpackage it and send it out to your trading partner in the correct format that they require. Here's my file that just came in at 3:28 p.m. And then I'll go back to Visual and do the second order, which was 60. Same scenario. We've got an in-stock 1/4 inch plate of some kind. We are shipping to Able Manufacturing as well. Clicking release. Get that back out. Give it just a second and refresh over here. Probably didn't go fast enough. Or hit save. Sometimes that's not a good move. All right. There it is. So this is number 1. I'll select it, approve it, and it will go off. All right. Now, if I want to see it, you'll see it disappears when I click back over here. It's gone. But I can go to the filter on the lower left and click approved. And now I can see all of my recent orders that I have sent out 855s on. So back over to Visual, and we'll ship this guy and create an ASN. All right. And my order number. We'll ship 59 first. And I'm going to just quickly push the ship all button. And if you know Visual, you know that just ships it all and it's clean and done. It may not be how you actually do it in real life, but that's how you do it. This is the speed and demo. And I'm going to go ahead and ship the other one as well. And then we'll look at them both in the Entrust dashboard. I'll just type the order in this time, just for the fact that it's faster. And that one goes out as well. And so I'll click back over to Entrust. And on the 856 tab, I'll need to see it on hold because I have them set up that way. There's my two ASNs ready to go. I'll select them, approve them. And there should be no problems. Oh, I think I only selected one there. I can look at the details by double-clicking on it so I can see what actually came out of Visual. And I can see I shipped it to Able Manufacturing. This was my order number. I shipped it UPS ground, and I can see the line detail by clicking over here, just like I could on the inbound. That's true on any of them. Let me approve this one real quick. All right, so both of those went out, and I've gone back to SPS for processing, and I will invoice these guys. And I'm going to suppress the print on this because I don't actually need them to print. I just need them to generate. And so I will suppress that. And you know, Visual takes a minute to create these invoices. So I'm going to start this. And then we're going to go look at Entrust while we're waiting. So it's my pack slip 48 and 49. I'll just start with 49. Sure I get my circle there. So while that's generating, I'm going to go back over to Entrust and just show you a couple quick settings. Now I'm logged in as administrator, so you'll see more settings than an average user would see. But that brings me to my security discussion, where you can actually set up users based on their roles. So you can have accounting only able to see an 810, or your customer service reps maybe only should see the 850s and the 855s, but not the shipping. So I can set it up granularly like that. I can also set it up so that if you have certain customer service reps who are responsible for certain accounts, like Amazon, you could set up your user to only be able to see anything related to Amazon. We have a bunch of settings, but one of them that I really wanted to talk about is the cross-reference setting. And Matt alluded to this a little earlier, where a customer is sending us data like a country, and our codes are completely different from what their codes are. In this example, I've got our ERP, so Visual says that HK means Hong Kong, but when our trading partner is sending data, they're sending HKG. And so this is a cross-reference that says if you see HKG, that really means HK for us. The second example here is specific to a customer. So my customer demo is always sending me JP for my EDI country, and in Visual we have Japan. So whenever I see an order coming in from demo, I need to have my EDI country translated from JP to Japan. And then I can actually do it by group. So if I have a whole bunch of customers with Amazon, I can actually do it by that group as well. I can say when Amazon sends CA, it really means Canada. We use unit of measure a lot too. There's a lot of customers that are sending in the word each, but we use EA, or they send in BX and we use the word box. So we can set that up at this level as well. It doesn't do any conversions. So we do let the ERP of record do any of the conversions. So if one box equals 12 eaches, that's not happening here, that's happening in your ERP. There's a number of other settings too, but we don't want to spend too much time in that. So I'm going to go back to my invoice over here, make sure it got done. I'm going to set the other one going before I go back to Entrust to show it to you. All right, that one's going. Back over to Entrust, and I'll go to my 810 tab and my on hold. And I'm going to refresh again. And there's my invoice for number one. Same story, click the selected box and approve it. And out goes my invoice. If I went over to my file folders here, I could see them. We're obviously not actually moving them at this point because we're in a demo environment and SPS doesn't want my demos. So here's my outbound ASN, or I'm sorry, invoice in this case, and it's in XML. I can see my approved one over here. Refresh. There's my _1. Here's my details again. And from here, I can still see my file this way without having to go through File Explorer. Take them out just a second here. All right. There it is. All right, so you can see how easy that really is. If you weren't in here selecting all of these buttons the entire time, this would have flowed through completely with no human intervention. I do want to go back to the 1850 that had a problem and just look at that and show you why it's easy when there is an issue and how we can handle that. So it's still on hold because it couldn't be approved. And I know why it couldn't be approved, but if I didn't, I could pop in here and it tells me really clearly that part 12345-invalid is not a part that was found in ERP as valid. So the customer sent probably just the wrong part number, and I have some options. I can call the customer and fix it. I can go into my ERP and add the correct part number. And then if I do that, I can revalidate here and save it, and it will actually flow cleanly into Visual without any more work. And if the customer says, oh, I didn't mean to order that, I can simply mark it here and delete it. Oops, sorry, my zoom came out there. Just mark delete, and it's gone, and I won't have to deal with it anymore. But if I accidentally deleted it, I do have a filter down here on the left-hand side that I can show deleted. So it's easy to see. And you'll see they're all orange, which means they were all problems. And so I probably deleted them well and accurately. So I do have this other invoice that just finished, it looks like. And then we'll just to close out our loop here, I will show you that it showed up in my dashboard with a quick refresh. There it is, and off it will go. So with all those steps, there's a lot of functionality in the settings, and there's a lot of things that we can do just to make it personalized for you and for your business process. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Tanya. We actually quickly had a question from Corey about where the tracking numbers populate. I thought it might be easier if you could show that real quick.
Sorry.
Are you comfortable? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't put it in there, but I can show you.
Okay.
Back on it. Oh, I have to share my screen again. Sorry, hold on.
Yes.
I didn't put it in, so you won't see it, but I can show you where it would be. Let's go to an approved one. And I'm just going to double click on it. And it's actually blank over here. My BOL or my pro number or my trailer number, they're all blank because I didn't fill that out in the ERP. But this is where it would come from. And we can pull it from whichever field you need. If you use if you use a custom field for it, we can pull it from there. And that's where the customization comes into play when you do things that are not the same, because this is true in any ERP and in anything. All customers do things differently. And so we will pull it from wherever you need it, but this is where it would show up. Does that help? Does that answer the question?
I think so.
All right.
Hopefully, Corey, that answers your question, wherever you are. But okay, thanks. I'll share my screen again. And again, I really just like to call out that, and thank you, Tanya, that was great. That, really, am I sharing the right screen? I believe so. That's just, we found that for folks who are in Visual and leverage the Encompass product, and we have one example here, again, you can access the SPS network and all the connections that are within that via the website, or you can have it sit and live directly within Infor Visual and just work from there. And then that connection to that SPS network happens behind the scenes. So as in the case of Sonia over at John Richard, they had a noticeably significant decrease in their manual entry for sales orders and boosted their overall efficiency. And that they found that the transition went pretty smooth. And a lot of what's nice too is if you do have a migration, there's zero disruption to your current operations when we're able to onboard customers without you actually having to stop and cut off service or stop what you're doing today. So, and I'm certainly happy that they appreciate some of our customer service stuff as well. So with that, we will get into a little bit of Q&A. We had 3 questions come in. Let me just dial them up here real quick if I can get there. The first one being is, can you use fulfillment and the Entrust product at the same time? So great question, and I think I touched on that briefly, which is, and I think Tanya, you could probably speak to this as well. But yes, it happens a lot where some folks will either be on fulfillment and then add automation, and partly because they want to get something stood up quickly and then sort of grow into that automation. There's also scenarios where it might not make sense to automate certain documents. And what I showed you in fulfillment, you know, is for those the core documents you typically find with EDI, but there's a lot of other documents, or you might have certain trading partners with volumes, smaller volumes, that it might not make sense to automate. So you can certainly have it be working in both. And the way our product is structured is, even if you do go with an automation product like with the Entrust product, you still get fulfillment and you still get access to everything if you want it. So Tanya, do you have anything to add on that front?
Yeah, just that's just super helpful if for some reason your network goes down, right? You can pick up your phone and log into fulfillment and get your ASN out on time. Or if you want to go live with your 850 and your 810, but you haven't quite worked out the quirks of an ASN, you can still use fulfillment for that middle step.
Perfect. Okay, next question. What versions of Infor Visual does this work for? Tanya, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, we go back to 7, although we really like people on 9 because Visual really likes people on 9, but any version, and we're keeping up with the regular cadence of output.
Okay, perfect. And how does your pricing work, and what are your implementation timelines? So I guess I can start. You know, typically SPS Commerce has a fixed and known cost structure in terms of we have an upfront fee and then also a recurring fee that's going to basically be composed of the number of partners that you have. There's a maintenance fee for each one of those. There's a network access fee, and then there's a cost per document that scales with how much you grow. But the way it's structured is it's fixed and known based on your partners and your volume, so that there's no surprises in terms of time and materials and work orders and things of that nature. It's all kind of bundled into that fixed recurring cost. So Tanya, maybe you want to hit price real quick on your side, and then we can talk implementation. Okay.
Ours is just a little, sorry, I'm talking over you. Just a little different. We actually price by document type. So if you have an 850, an 810, an 856, and an 855, it's priced by each document. We don't really care how many trading partners you use those for. You would have added expense if you suddenly start working with a 3PL and need the 3PL pieces, or if you are asked to do an inventory advice, that's when the next additional costs would come in. And then there's an annual maintenance program along with that as well.
Yeah. And if for anybody worried that there's 2 contracts out there, I wouldn't be too concerned just in terms of the process. Again, SPS and Encompass have been working together for many years and understand how each other price and can present that in a pretty clear fashion so that you understand it. But in terms of implementation, you know, we have what I would call a setup or configuration period. But like once you sign with SPS, we start your project right away, and we're going to take some time to do the design and configuration, understand your business, and really make sure that we're designing your solution that's going to fit best for what you need to do. And then we're going to, you know, and that might take 4 to 6 weeks or so. And then we're going to add a partner on every 1 or 2 weeks from there, going there forward. And then maybe a little bit faster if we can create some efficiencies, but that's about the pace of implementation, I would say. Tanya, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty standardized these days. We've done it so many times.
Right. Perfect. So with that, no further questions that I saw. And Corey did write back and say, yes, that answered her question. So that's
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, just to wrap up, we can give you a couple minutes back today, but just to review our myth-busting theme, is EDI a huge pain? It is. Again, there's just so much complexity. It's dictated by all the retailers and buying organizations that are out there. They all have different requirements. They all need to be managed. And for that reason, it can be quite a pain, but that's why EDI or SPS and Encompass work together, and that's why we exist, is because it is a challenge and it's a problem and it's a pain that we like to think that we solve pretty well. Is myth number 2, so I would say that's it's true, but yes, we can help. Myth number 2, does EDI require an IT project? Certainly not like the old days, and in fact not at all, especially if you have access to our network through the fulfillment product that we have, where you can do a bulk of what you really need to do with most buying organizations by interacting through the website and doing your EDI there. As you saw in the demo, there's just a lot of automation features that we've spent a ton of time and energy on as an organization to make it easy to do EDI within that platform and do more EDI in less amount of time, to make it easier to stand up partners and also make it easy to get into in terms of price. So we feel like we've come a long way there, where you do not necessarily need an IT project to get your feet wet with EDI. And finally, myth 3, is EDI too complicated to automate? Again, I would say with what Tanya showed you, and again, the long history and partnership that we've had there, it is definitely not too complicated to automate. In fact, it's something that we do all day long. And if you do have the volume to justify or the complexity to justify having your orders flow directly in an Infor Visual so that you can work within the system, hopefully you saw today that that's a mature solution and one that you can take advantage of pretty quickly. So with that, again, thank you for your time today, and feel free to reach out to either Tanya or myself anytime. This was recorded. We will send it out today so that you have access to it. But, and as Tanya mentioned as well, I think she hit it on the head. A lot of this and what we do is prescriptive by nature. And if you have specific business challenges or that we can solve for and show you how we can tailor a little bit of how we would design or configure these solutions to meet your needs, as we're more than happy to do so. So again, Tanya, any final words?
No, just thanks.
Okay. All right. And thanks to you, Tanya. Thanks for everybody, to everybody at SPS and Encompass who helped us out, set this up, and have a great day. Thanks again.